the UN took a certain amount of land and designated that they would give that back to the Jews because there was such an exodus of people coming back in. A lot of this exodus was caused because of World War II. All right, so you can still see Jerusalem. There basically was no land given to Jerusalem. The war broke out in 1947 between the Palestinians and the Jews. By the end of the war, in 1947, you could see what Israel had taken back to claim as their land. And you will see that right on the outskirts of Jerusalem, they finally took control in 1948 after the war. It was at that time they became a recognized nation and a state. That was in 1948 when that actually began. This was also known as the liberation of Jerusalem. Now, a 6-day war, there was a 6-day war that took place after this. I'll go back and get this corrected, but that took place in 1967. The 6-day war, after the 6-day war, they actually controlled Jerusalem. In fact, if the rest of the world didn't stop them, they were going to take over Egypt, and they were going to take over some other countries too. And in that 6-day war, if you've never read the story, you need to go back and take a look at the power that God gave this nation. And God gave that to him because of the promises to Abraham and because of the prophecies that were going to be fulfilled. And you can see from 1946 till today where Israel had grown. And every time that these nations, the Palestinians and those who were the terrorists tried to stop Israel, they grew. They got bigger and they got more powerful. So you can see through the course from 1946, you can see back then they said, well, there's no way in the world that it's going to take armies to surround Jerusalem to stop this. By 1967, after the 6-day war, you can see they now control Jerusalem, and they are not giving it back. They will never give that land back again. And I'm going to show you a letter in just a few minutes. The Bible gives us an established fact that every time God has reached one of his appointed times, Satan was there. Remember the sub-theme to this sermon. At each time Satan was there attempting to destroy God's plan, he also tried to destroy God's people. Now, when this was beginning to take place, if we can look back and we can say, this was one of God's appointed times to bring Jerusalem to where it would fulfill prophecy. When did Satan begin his plan to stop it? Hitler in World War II. One of his first acts when he took office was to take away the rights of the Jews to own property and businesses, way back in 1931. Few men in history, for the good or bad, have been so pivotal that their names are associated with excellence and good, or pure and evil. Adolf Hitler, born in Linz, Austria, was one of those men. Over the past 60 years, the name Hitler has become synonymous with the devil or Satan. He has been seen by the Western world, except for a few, as the man responsible for the 65 million deaths worldwide of World War II, including 2/3 of the Jews of Europe and close to 2 million children apart from the war deaths. His primary focus, you can see he was affixed to destroy the Jews. The world, the only recognized link that they have to the Old Testament, to God's people, is modern-day Israel, that they understand it, which are basically and primarily the Jews. He actually even aligned himself to the Arabs. And his goal was, while he destroyed and annihilated all the Jews throughout Europe, he was going to be working with the Arabs to go down and destroy all the Jews who were fleeing back to where? To Jerusalem. And actually, there's a movie out with Paul Newman that talks about the Exodus. It's quite a movie, talk about the birth of Israel in modern-day times. His goal was to destroy off the face of the earth all Jews. Now, what is Satan's plan for us? We are Israelites. The end time tells us he's going after God's elect. And I'm going to show you that. What about today? First of all, we can look back and see historically how God orchestrated modern Israel's destiny. You can go back now and you can see just briefly what I've gone, and you can go back and see it more intricately on your own if you do a study and see how all these things came about, how miraculous they were. For Israel to be able to strike first and to destroy nations around them in 6 days and have the world come in and say, please stop. They actually stopped them because they would have marched right into Egypt. They would have marched right up to Syria, and there would have been no stopping Israel back then. And they would have took control of the whole area, and one of the goals was they were going to take back all the land of the tribes. And they would have had it too, had they just not stopped. And there was nobody there to stop them. And that's from 1947 to 1967. So in 20 years, God brought them where they weren't even an established nation to a powerhouse that they couldn't be stopped. Now they have nuclear weapons. They vowed they will not be stopped. They will never walk to the gas chambers again. Only at an appointed time. Second, we can see clearly that Satan was there attempting to destroy God's plan and those God was using. Who was God going to use? It was the Jews of the day. And Satan went after to destroy them using Hitler and his policies. 11:13 says, the envy also of Ephraim shall depart. The adversaries of Judah shall be cut off, and Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. That has got to take place before Christ returns. So that means there's going to be a change coming. Have we been living in that change? Let's look forward now. A changing nation. The decisions for America's welfare today are being made out of fear, urgency, panic. You listen to the legislators today, you listen to the business leaders, and they're at wit's end trying to stop everything they try to do. They threw $800 billion out there to stop the economic problem. $350 billion went to the banks and the financial institutions to help the housing market. Since they have done that, the economy has continued to drop, continued to get worse. Unemployment continues to rise. Every company that they gave billions of dollars to are now in worse shape than they were before they gave them the money. I mean, that doesn't take a rocket scientist to say there's a problem here. Judges says, and in those days, and this was right reminding me of what's going on right now, you listen to all these politicians out there. Everybody's got a plan. Everybody's got a solution. And if we just do this, it's going to work. And this is what came to my mind when I hear them. And in those days, there was no king in Israel, and every man did what was right in his own sight, his own eyes. I mean, when I look at Washington today, I look at Wall Street today, that's what's going on. Everybody's doing what's right in their own eyes, and they're trying to do it without understanding the principles of God. And that's why we're in the mess we're in, and that's why we can't get out of the mess we're in. The decisions being made today by those in charge are the same people who failed to recognize the problems when they were being warned. Take a look at this.
Many financial analysts are saying that if mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had been effectively regulated years ago, the supercharged subprime mortgage meltdown that led to the current financial mess would either never have happened or would have been nowhere near as severe. Chief White House correspondent Brett Baer rejoins us now to examine the timeline. What were those warning signs? Who raised them and who disputed them?
The Bush administration raised red flags starting in April 2001. The 02 budget request declares that the size of mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is, quote, a potential problem because financial trouble in either one of them could, quote, cause strong repercussions in financial markets. In 2003, the White House warning about Fannie and Freddie was upgraded to a systemic risk that could spread beyond just the housing sector. In fall of 03, the Bush administration was pushing Congress hard to create a new federal agency to regulate and supervise Fannie and Freddie, both government-sponsored enterprises or GSEs.
We need a strong, world-class regulatory agency to oversee the prudential operations of the GSEs and the safety and the soundness of their financial activities.
But then Treasury Secretary Snow was getting a lot of pushback from then-ranking member, now chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, Democratic Congressman Barney Frank.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are not in a crisis.
In fact, Frank said the federal government should be encouraging Fannie and Freddie to do more to get low-income families into homes. And he believed too many people had a sky-is-falling mentality.
The more people, in my judgment, exaggerate a threat of safety and soundness, the more people conjure up the possibility of serious financial losses to the Treasury, which I do not see. I think we see entities that are fundamentally sound financially and withstand some of the disaster scenarios. And even if there were a problem, the federal government doesn't bail them out. But the more pressure there is there, then the less